Hi, welcome back. I'm just going to have a look at the Multi-Wii copter, or the Multi-Wii sketch files for the new AIR flight control unit. Now they run on the same Multi-Wii code, but there are a couple of differences in them. Quentin actually has all the different versions downloadable in one folder for Quad-X with GPS, Quad-X using a summed input, and tricopter and tricopter with GPS. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and show you, for instance, on the Quad-X GPS version, what you need to do to change it to a summed input, and at the same time there's a minor glitch with the software, which isn't an issue, which already is solved in the Quad-X software, but not in the other versions from what I can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through and turn, for this example, the Quad-X GPS into Quad-X GPS with a summed Futaba TFR4 input for you. Now, you need to have already downloaded the Arduino software. There's a link on the Multi-Wii copter site to the Arduino website. Just download the correct version for whatever type of computer you've got. Inside the folder, okay, so I'm just going to open up the folder that says Quad-X GPS. I'm looking for a file name that ends in INO that's basically the full description. You've got all these other little files here. Ignore them. You just want to open Multi-Wii Air 22 and I get this opening. Okay, and it automatically opens all those other files. I'm just going to drag that up here, increase the size so it fills up this little window nicely for us, and you've got the various tabs there for those other files mentioned in that folder. Ignore all of them. The only tab you need to worry about is the config.h tab here, config.h. This is the only file you ever need to touch. Okay, and mostly you won't need to touch this if you order the the Air with the correct setup. You should never have to touch this. So, but if in case you do want to make a change, and there are a couple, we're just going to go through it. Okay, first section, type of multicopter is Quad-X. That's correct. We can ignore all this little next section. We can ignore this section, although I will just mention there's two options. We can have AIR or Air with GPS defined. Now, what we need to do, if we, for instance, didn't want this to be a GPS version anymore, we would put 2 forward slashes at the beginning of that line, and we go to the line above and remove the 2 forward slashes in the beginning of that line. That's called commenting and uncommenting, and that's how most of this software works. We comment, then uncomment the options we want. Okay, so that's back to where we were. Okay, we're still scrolling down. None of this we need to worry about. None of this we need to worry about. This is all done for you. You don't have to worry about any of this. Alright, but we are coming down to the first section we want to look at, which is this. Section 3, RC system setup. And to do a summed input, all we have to do is find the correct version, and I've done another video elsewhere on this. Right, and I'm looking for this line here that says Futaba, and all I do is uncomment that by removing those 2 backslashes, and now that's the only change we really need to do to make this a GPS with a summed input. Okay. Just going to go down a bit further and cover a few other things while we're here of interest. And this is a big tip for most of you. One of the minor glitches or annoyances is that the trigger output for the LEDs is actually reversed on the Air. To get it back working properly, if you find this section, Pro Micro version related, inverted status LED for Pro Micro version 10, if you simply do that to the code, we've now inverted the LED signal, and the LEDs will now be on when armed and off when disarmed. Okay, the Quad X, standard Quad X software already has that line uncommented, but some of the others it hasn't already. I've mentioned it to Quentin, he'll probably update the software at some stage, but just in case, that's the line you're looking for. Okay, define my Pro Micro 10, and that will get your LEDs working the right way around. Just going to skim down a few other little things here. More stuff we can ignore. More stuff we can ignore. Most of this you can ignore. But I will just come down to one little thing in the GPS section. One thing I like to make sure is define GPS LED indicator is commented. I find it really annoying, the LEDs blinking at you when you're in GPS mode. But more importantly, down here we've got this thing here, define mag declination 10.0. Now that's a default number that Quentin puts in. Ideally what you want to do is click on this link here, this hyperlink here, and calculate, and that will take you to a web page that will tell you your magnetic declination for your current location. Or you can dial in a location and go searching for the magnetic declination in another location. Right? Yeah, and it'll give you a number, right, in degrees and minutes, but that needs to be converted to decimal. So you put the degrees bit in. Like for instance, I know for where I am, it's 8 degrees. And whatever the minutes are, you simply divide that number by 60. So it's 59 minutes, you divide it by 60. If it's 10 minutes, you divide that by 60. So 10 divided by 60. Just open a calculator for the sake of doing it. So say it's 10 minutes, 10. We divide that by 60. And we get 0.166666. So in here we would type delete 0.17, just rounding up. Whoops, too many points. And that would give me the correct magnetic declination for my location. It will, the GPS will work without that, but it works a hell of a lot better if you do set that. So I recommend if you're running a GPS, you do actually set that up correctly. And further down we've got the LCD stuff, which we're ignoring because you can't run the LCD, the OLED display and the GPS at the same time. Define alt fast, throttle change should be set, define motor stop should be set, and basically you shouldn't have to do anything more in this code. Okay, so I'm just going to go back up the top. We've got the airframe type. So if you wanted to, you could actually change this from Quad X, for instance, to you might run a Quad Plus airframe. You can do that just by commenting out and in the various lines. Okay, so the airframe type, the controller type, whether you're a Sirius AIR or a Sirius AIR with GPS. So if you had one with, if you've got one with, if you bought it without the GPS and you want to add the GPS, you just need to change that little bit of code there. Okay, scrolling down, your direction you may need to change if you're a tricopter, but for everything else you never have to change that. Scrolling down again, we've got the summed input that I've added for Fataba. Okay, and we've done the inverted status for the LED because that might have gotten skipped. I've got to say, I've done, I do a few files for people on request, and it's really easy to forget one or two little things like that when you do a file for somebody. So really, you guys should be responsible for your own files, is all I'm going to say. Define I2C GPS is already ticked. We changed the magnetic declination, and the rest of it should be unchanged. You should never have to mess with the rest of the code. Now, once you've done all that, up the top here is a little tick logo. Now, click on that, and that's going to just compile the code and verify it. And if we're lucky, down here in this bottom screen, we end up with this. And no error messages. If you've got any error messages, I suggest you download a fresh version of the file and start again. You've messed something up somewhere. Having done the compile, up the top of the screen, we've got some options as far as, up the top of the screen, we've got some options, and I'm going to click on Tools and go down to Board Type and make sure Leonardo is ticked for an air. And on serial port, I'm going to make sure that the serial port of my board is selected. Now at the moment, I don't have a board plugged in, so the options aren't available, but the one I'm looking for is just printed down here. USB mode MFD 1311 is already selected. If you've got the boards plugged in when this opens, it should actually find that for you anyway. So once you've got both of those things selected, so you need Leonardo and which serial port you're using, you then can click on the upload logo, and that will drop the code into the board for you. And that's done. The next thing you need to do is open the GUI, as I've shown in a previous video, and make sure everything is correct. One thing I do recommend is in the GUI, after you've made any code changes, I'll just open it up and show you. After you've made any code changes, when you do open up the GUI, it's a good idea after you've selected the port and click Start, if you hit the reset button, it clears the old memory. It means you've got to reset your switches and any PID changes you've done. But if you do the reset, after you make any code changes, is a really good idea because it just defaults all the values out and gives you does a complete reset on the processor. So anything that's hanging around buggy code or anything from a previous load is well and truly gone. Alright, so there you go. That's the Arduino code for a Quad-X GPS that I've changed to a sum input, and I've also changed the magnetic declination to suit where I am, and I fixed the little issue with the LED. Where are we? I fixed the little issue that happens because the LED is inverted there using that bit of code. Alright, see you guys online. Catch ya.